Yesterday we discussed the significance of Ashwapati's experience of Nirvana and his attempt to go beyond it to find fulfillment, which is more integral than the fulfillment of Nirvana. Now, I have said in that context all that probably needs to be said, how Sri Aurobindo, in trying to do that, brings back to us once again the Vedic ideal of Indian spiritual tradition and gives to us perfection of life as the main purpose of spiritual life, not purely escape from life or what is regarded as freeing our soul from the bonds of ignorance. It's not just our soul is in the bonds of ignorance, our body, our life energies, our mind are also caught up in this prison house of ignorance. And before you can free any of these, the soul has to be free. That's the first step. Only with the help of Atman, help of the energy and the power that is inherent in the Atman, we can proceed to free, liberate the instruments of the soul. And that seems to be, as Sri Aurobindo points out, the whole purpose of this evolution. When the Vedas say the one wanted to be many, it didn't mean the one wanted to be the hungry many or the tired many or the sick many or the weak many, but many in which each form manifests one aspect of the fullness of the divine, divine's beauty, glory, divine's opulence, all this. And so, as long as we have not done that, we have only taken one step. We haven't taken both the steps. Therefore, he says to free the self is but one radiant pace. Here to fulfill himself was God's desire. If God desired to create this world, it was to fulfill himself and not to create a kind of world which will be sufficiently disgusting for all of us so that we seek to escape from it, abandon it, and seek solace, peace, bliss, whatever, just for the soul. All this I have said at great length. In fact, if you have noticed, Savitri I have used as a springboard to bring to you various aspects of Sri Aurobindo's thought. And that's the great advantage of taking up Savitri, because it allows you this freedom to move on, concentrate on any one or the other aspects of Sri Aurobindo's vision, his philosophy, and so on. I normally don't say a great deal about yoga because I am not a great yogi myself. But I talk about the kind of yoga that Sri Aurobindo assumes, and I emphasize those aspects too. Now, how do I meditate? How do I attain mental peace? How do I attain bliss? And these are the more practical questions people ask. And Sri Aurobindo has answered them in many ways, many forms. If you want a 10-page answer, he has given a 10-page answer. If you want a 5-page answer, he has given a 5-page answer. If you want a 1-page answer, he has given that. All that remains for us to is to go to his writings. Particularly, you will find letters on yoga the most useful. Those of us who have no academic interests in yoga but practical interest in yoga, you would do well to take up his letters. The letters are arranged in various sections, one section devoted to meditation, one section devoted to bhakti, one section devoted to science, one devoted to reason. So many of the questions that are likely to arise in our minds were also expressed by his devotees. He had a very large circle of devotees, and there you had all kinds of people. And they were all free to ask, raise any question. And most of these letters are still, unfortunately for us, in the ashram, and they have reproduced them and they have collated them, and they have now become 3 volumes in the centenary edition. And the new volume, new set that is coming out, probably this will be another volume of letters, so there will be 4 volumes of letters. So you have the whole gamut there covered, so there is no dearth of instruction and guidance. Plus, of course, more simply, more directly, Mother also has talked about these things. And one great advantage we have with Mother's collected works is at the end of each volume there is an index. So if you feel too lazy to go through the whole book and want to look up only those parts in which you are interested, you go to the index and take up the topic which is your choice, and then consult the pages and you can get there. So all this literature is available. So what I would like to do today is, after having done all this background for the last 6 days, we must now move on. Otherwise we will just get lost in the first part of this book. So I would like to concentrate on reading a dramatic part of this, which comes in Canto 4 of Book 3, the conversation between the Divine Mother and Ashwapati. That's the part I will want to read and concentrate on. But before that, I would like to draw your attention to a very well-known invocation to the Divine Mother, which comes on page 312. Oh, sorry, it's page 314. This is an invocation to the Divine Mother, and about 12 lines from the top of page 314, you have this. I'll just read it. It's very difficult to explain it. There are several passages here in Savitri which have a kind of mantric effect, an uplifting effect of that kind. And this is partly because of the poetry, partly because of the consciousness from which this poetry has come. And this is undoubtedly one of those passages. So I'll just read it slowly so that you can feel the effect and force of this power. So this is basically the invocation to the Divine Mother. At the head she stands of birth and toil and fate. In their slow round the cycles turn to her call. Alone her hands can change time's dragon base. Hers is the mystery the night conceals. The spirit's alchemist energy is hers. She is the golden bridge, the wonderful fire, the luminous heart of the unknown is she, a power of silence in the depths of God. She is the force, the inevitable word, the magnet of our difficult ascent, the sun from which we kindle all our suns, the light that leans from the unrealized vasts, the joy that beckons from the impossible, the might of all that never yet came down. All nature dumbly calls to her alone, to heal with her feet the aching throb of life, and break the seals on the dim soul of man, and kindle her fire in the closed heart of things. All here shall be one day her sweetness home. All contraries prepare her harmony. Towards her our knowledge climbs, our passion gropes. In her miraculous rapture we shall dwell. Her clasp shall turn to ecstasy our pain. Our self shall be one self with all through her. In her confirmed because transformed in her, our life shall find in its fulfilled response. Above, the boundless, hushed beatitudes. Below, the wonder of the embrace divine. Now, just after this passage, we'll move on to Canto 4 of the same book, which begins on page 334. We begin on page 335. Now, when, as we have seen, Ashwapati has now gone beyond all the known levels of consciousness and entered what is called the transcendental world. Transcendental world is the world which has not yet manifested itself. As I was saying to you the other day, in Ashwapati's yoga, in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, there is a unique synthesis of not only of all the Vedantic yogas, but also of Vedantic and Tantric yogas. As you know, Tantra begins with the mother. Mother is the central deity that Tantra worships. But in Vedanta, it is not so much the mother. Mother represents the executive aspect of the supreme reality. You have what is called the Purusha and the Prakriti, and Tantra begins by adoring Prakriti because Tantra wants to conquer life. Vedanta doesn't aim at conquering life. Vedanta only aims at escaping from life, escaping from the illusion, from ignorance, the bond that has been woven around it. It wants to free the soul from this. And that's why asceticism, rejection, and all these things are a part of Vedanta. Whereas in Tantra, there is this whole idea of enjoying the world. Not just escaping from the world, but whatever discipline is required to withdraw your consciousness from its entanglement in Prakriti. Once you have done that, once you have realized your freedom, then you go back and repossess Prakriti, you repossess nature, and you enjoy nature. That is bhukti, not just mukti, but bhukti is also one of the aims of Tantra. Now, in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, he combines both these things. You begin with the yoga where consciousness, its purification, its universalization, all these things are important. But ultimately, we want a yoga which transforms life. And in order to be able to transform life, we have to go to another aspect of the divine, which is generally regarded as the executive aspect of the divine, the Chit Shakti of the divine. Say Sat, Chit, and Ananda. It is not three different deities or three different aspects of it, it's only an emphasis. And we here emphasize the Chit Shakti, the executive aspect of the universe, and that is generally regarded as the Supreme Divine Mother, the Adya Shakti. And she becomes ultimately the leader and the guide of our yoga, because as the Sri Aurobindo himself said, you cannot do my yoga. The yoga, my yoga, it will be done by the divine in you, provided you allow divine to do the yoga in you. The yoga of transformation is so very, very difficult, but the yoga has to be done, and this entire so-called evolution, right from matter to life, life to mind, this is an evolutioner. This is a yoga that has been performed without anybody's help, without anybody's cooperation, because the Supreme Mother is the leader of this yoga. What we call Prakriti, what we call nature, is the lower aspect of it, that which binds us, that which surrounds us with ignorance, that which is a function of the play of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. This is all lower Prakriti. And when you transcend the lower Prakriti, the higher Prakriti is the Supreme Divine Mother. The Supreme Divine Mother and what you call lower Prakriti are two aspects of the same reality. And so now Ashwapati goes to the Supreme Divine Mother, goes beyond all manifested world, because he has to bring a new power, a new creation has to come, and that creation can only come from the Supreme Mother. It is the function, that aspect of the divine, which creates new things, which we call the Mother. And therefore, this, as I said the other day, this is only a concession to the human mind. For us, woman is the, that aspect in humanity which creates things, which gives birth to new things, and therefore we always call her the Mother. And so, this is the Divine Mother, and Ashwapati is now standing face to face with the Divine Mother. We have already seen his invocation of the Divine Mother. At the head she stands of birth and toil and fate. I read out the very beginning. Now, This is what the Divine Mother says to Ashwapati. O son of strength, page 335. O son of strength, who climbst creation speaks, no soul is thy companion in the light. The first thing the Divine Mother acknowledges is that Ashwapati has reached a stage which nobody has so far come to. O son of strength, who climbst creation speaks, no soul is thy companion in the light. Alone thou standest at the eternal doors. What thou hast won is thine, but ask no more. The Divine Mother knows why Ashwapati has come here. Ashwapati hasn't come here to ask anything for himself. He wants to take back to earth a greater power so that everybody on earth can use that power, so that the earth can be transformed. And so the Divine Mother knows this and tells him, I know why you have come. The glory, the splendor that you have seen here at this level of experience is yours. Don't ask for anything more. Don't ask me, give me so that I can go and distribute it to ordinary human beings. Why not? She says, what thou hast won is thine, but ask no more. O spirit aspiring in an ignorant world, in an ignorant frame, O voice arisen from the inconscient world, how shalt thou speak for men whose hearts are dumb? Human beings do not ask for a transformation. Human beings don't want the highest wisdom. Human beings want some minor adjustments to their life, that's all that they want. And here, you want to take to them the supreme wisdom. If you put to vote, how many people want supreme wisdom? I don't think many people will say we want supreme wisdom. We want to make our life a little happier than we are. We have our own agenda for happiness. So we have 2 or 3 levels. Physically, this is what we want. Vitally, this is what we want. Mentally, this is what we want. Oh, Divine Mother, if you are real, true, give me these things. Oh, all this crown of conscious immortality, all these things, we don't know what it is, so we are not asking for that. So this is what man is. So how can you take this and distribute it to human beings who haven't even realized that they really need it? So he says, O voice arisen from the inconscious world, how shalt thou speak for men whose hearts are dumb? Make purblind earth the soul-seer vision's home, or lighten the burden of the senseless globe. I am the mystery beyond reach of mind. I am the goal of the travail of the suns. My fire and sweetness are the cause of life, but too immense my danger and my joy. My joy and the adventure which precedes this joy are too immense for an ordinary human being even to aspire for. Awake not the immeasurable descent. Speak not my secret name to hostile time. Man is too weak to bear the infinite's weight. Truth born too soon might break the imperfect earth. If the earth is not ready, if the patra is not ready, if it is not properly baked, and the descent comes down, the pot will break. And therefore, what you have won, you have prepared yourself for this great vision, great experience. It's all yours. Do not go back. You cannot go back and just distribute it to other human beings, because he gives the reason, she gives the reason. Truth born too soon might break the imperfect earth. Leave the all-seeing power to hew its way. You see, so far, nature has tardily, slowly at least, it has been making its own way, finding its own way. Scientists say there is no pattern, this all seems to be just a series of accidents, whether it's accidents or whatever. There seems to be a progress in nature. So from dead matter came life, from life came mind. And all this There was no fire plan, there was no 8-year plan, there was nobody to understand nature's purpose, and yet there is a prajna, there is a consciousness that seems to work through all this. There are delays, all these things are true, but from matter we have come to man, and the power that has guided evolution so far, the same power will guide man to be God. There is no need to be impatient. Then, well, if that has to happen, you may have to wait for another couple of million years from now. Then probably man on his own will reach that stage and all this will be happy. 2 million years, that's what more or less this is the point that the Divine Mother is making. Even without you are doing anything, nature will get there. Nature will, because it has already come this far and there is more distance to cover, but it will get there. And therefore he says, leave the all-seeing power to hew its way. In thy single vast achievement reign apart, helping the world with thy great lonely days. You will be all alone in this whole world, because nobody has seen this glory, nobody has seen this possibility. As Sri Aurobindo was all alone in this world, when he said man is to become a god, nobody believed him. Even now very few people believe him. So he will be all alone on earth. But he says, helping the world in thy single vast achievement reign apart, helping the world with thy great lonely days. I ask thee not to merge thy heart of flame in the immobile's wide uncaring bliss, turned from the fruitless motion of the years, deserting the fierce labor of the worlds, aloof from being lost in the alone. I don't want you to abandon the world and run away from the world and indulge in some kind of spiritual ecstasy and spiritual bliss so that you live apart. No, he says, live amongst human beings, act as a tower of light. So your presence, your guidance will help other human beings, but you can't immediately go and start changing the world because man is not yet ready. How shall thy mighty spirit brook repose when death is still unconquered on the earth and time a field of suffering and pain? How can any wise man hope to take rest in this world since death is not yet conquered? And death represents not just physical death, death represents all kinds of imperfections. That is, death is a symbol of all kinds of negation, all kinds of representations. In this world, love cannot live very long, friendship cannot live very long, no ideal can live very long. There seems to be a constant bombardment of all kinds of forces to destroy anything good and noble that comes into man's hearts. And all this is symbolized by death. So how can you rest? How can anybody think of taking a rest into nirvana when death remains unconquered on this earth? This was the great feeling that Buddha had when Buddha, as you know, was on the verge of slipping into nirvana. The story says he looked back at the world and saw millions of souls absorbed in deep ignorance. As a result, millions of souls in deep pain, agony, restless, struggling. He said to himself, how can I be so selfish as to immerse myself into the bliss of nirvana when the whole world is ignorance and wants help? So it seems he turned back from the door of nirvana, came back to this earth. And the story goes that for the last 2500 years, Buddha's spirit is helping mankind slowly to grow into light. But my feeling is, if the way the world is going, Buddha may have to wait infinitely. Nothing seems to have happened in the last 2500 years which gives really scope for hope and say the Buddhist way or the way that the yogis so far have discovered will essentially solve this problem of imperfection. You can, each yogi, each self-realized person in this world can bring light and hope maybe to 1,000 people. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa came, in my judgment, bringing the highest light from the highest heaven. How many people wanted that light? How many people used that light? 5,000? 10,000 in the last 100, 150 years? 20,000? What is the world's population? How many Ramakrishnas will be needed? When is this story going to be solved? You see, in Shankaracharya, in writing his commentary, Brahma Sutra, he says, before even spiritual life can begin, you have to cultivate a certain discipline. You have to have full control over all your desires, senses. You have to have viveka, sense of discrimination. You have to have vairagya, real detachment. Look at all of us. How many of us are even in the kindergarten? And the whole of humanity is to qualify itself for spiritual life. How long do we have to wait? So as I always say, that Buddha's basic sentiment was the right sentiment. He said, I will not take a plunge into Nirvana. It will be a very selfish act on my part as long as the rest of humanity is in ignorance and suffering. But I have, it's my opinion, you may take it or not take it, Buddha doesn't have the clue how to solve this problem on a universal scale. And it is to be able to solve this problem, that which Buddha couldn't solve, which other people have not been able to solve. They can only be able to solve problems of how to bring freedom to the human soul, how to get to moksha, that's all people teach you. But how to bring perfection to this earth, perfection to all aspects of human life, not just as individuals, but for the whole of humanity, this people haven't even thought of. As I told you, so far all the great yogic peaks have been freaks of genius. If you have a yogic genius, as I give you the example, if you are Tansen, the great musician, you can sing in an inspired way, and in your house all the lights will be lit without electricity, without, Deepak Rag, when he was singing, all lights used to come on. That's what is believed. But how many of us can be Tansens? How many of us are born to be Tansens? So you and I, if we need light, we need this. We need the concrete fact of science and electricity so that even without being great geniuses, we can live in light. So Sri Aurobindo was asking to say that, everybody has to have mumukshutvam, everybody has to have vairagyam, everybody has to have full control of their senses, and then they start spiritual life, and then they will find freedom. This is a counsel of despair. In India, very often I tell them this story. Young fathers of young students come to me sometime and despair. India doesn't offer enough opportunities. There are no jobs, government jobs, even if you get them. There are all kinds of discriminations. Life in India is doesn't offer many opportunities to young people. Then sometimes, I make a story. I always try to explain philosophies through stories, And suppose somebody told you, what is the problem? Very easy. In India also you have plenty of opportunities. How do we do that? Well, it's easy, You ask your son to appear for the IIT entrance test. All right? Now, if your son takes the IIT entrance test and finishes the 5 years of IIT, I assure you, anywhere in the world he will get a very good job. IIT graduates have flooded the American market. Anywhere in America, if an IIT graduate from India applies, he's definitely taken. So what is the problem? Send your son to IIT, let him finish the IIT course. The whole world is at his feet. He can get jobs in Singapore, he can get jobs in England, he can get jobs anywhere. It's like saying, What is the problem in human life? You can find the freedom of your soul. How do you get the freedom of the soul? Oh, you must have mumukshatvam, you must have vairagyam, you must have vivekam, you must have control of your senses. When all this is done, you start your spiritual life and then make progress and then find your soul and then you find your happiness. It's like saying, the same thing as I was saying, your son, how many children do you have? 4 sons, no problem. Ask them, there are 5 IITs, send them to each IIT. Then the father says, sir, you know how difficult it is to get into IIT? Every year, literally lakhs and lakhs of young students apply. And there are hardly 700 to 800 seats. All the IITs together. And the young people applying are 7 to 8 lakhs. This is the problem. Even getting admission to the spiritual path is so difficult. And we are trying to say it's very easy. You just cultivate mumukshatvam, you just cultivate viveka, you just cultivate vairagya. If this is the program, how many Buddhas are going to be needed? How many Ramakrishna Paramahamsas? How many Sri Aurobindos are going to be needed? How many Raman Maharshis are going to be needed? So this is a program which has, I don't think that this program will ever succeed in life. Because as I said, the most tragic fact about man is that the divine grace comes down and we consistently reject it. Now what Sri Aurobindo wants to do, he wants to do something to the human consciousness such that next time the grace comes, the human being will be incapable of rejecting it. Just as now, human beings have consistently rejected it. He is asking this question, can something be done by which human consciousness will be capable of automatically receiving this grace that comes from heaven? It can be done, but it's not easy. It requires taking a tremendous leap into consciousness. It is difficult. Sri Aurobindo is not giving you a 7-day course in moksha. He is not giving you a 3-week course in world happiness. He is saying, my yoga is for the most adventurous. If you want easy victories, easy solutions, he says, please don't come here. And he has also told people, even if you are the most intelligent man, the most well-read man, that is not a qualification for my yoga. Do you have the inner call? Only if you have the inner call, you will be able to do this yoga. It's a very difficult yoga, he was saying. And so, this is a problem people do not understand. There are hundreds and hundreds of yogas. I have nothing but the highest praise for all the great work that our tradition has done. But the problem is, how do we qualify even? If the entry requirements are as stringent as the entry requirement for IIT. IIT, on paper, if you have passed the first year science, you are eligible to write the examination. So, in theory, if we are human beings, we are qualified to join the spiritual pursuit. But does every first year science, one who has passed the first year science examination, get admission to IITs? This is the ambition of all young people in India. They start tuitions for getting into IITs 2 years before they are eligible. Whole day and night tuitions, classes. At the end of it all, when 8 to 10 lakhs of students apply, 700-800 students are selected. Exactly the same way here. The Gita says, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatadisiddhaye. Among thousands of human beings, a few turn to the spiritual life. And among the few who turn to spiritual life, occasionally one man gets siddhi. If this is the path, I for certain know I have no chance. It's a very, very difficult path. The only hope for you and me is when the supramind is established on earth. Then we suddenly become candidates for this. That is why I tell people, this is a great hope, this is a great message, and I am happy to be a town crier. I don't want to do anything. I'm just happy, these great things Sri Aurobindo has discovered, and this is going to come down, this is going to be a reality. And so here at this point, the Supreme Mother says, how can you go down to earth and escape from this whole world, live in your own private spiritual garden, enjoying the spiritual bliss, as long as in the world, death, pain, incapacity, they are not conquered by humanity. That's what he said. How shall thy mighty spirit brook repose, while death is still unconquered on the earth, and time a field of suffering and pain? No matter how intelligent you are, this is the whole tragedy of life. No matter how gifted you are, unless you have turned to the Spirit, the final judgment on life is, this world is anityam asukham. This world is a field of pain and suffering, and everything here is transient. Everybody knows that. And therefore we all want another way, we want another mode of existence. The mode of existence that has now been prescribed to us, the so-called spiritual path, only occasionally one person can get there. Rest of us all fall on the wayside. Yudhishthir, at the end of the whole Mahabharata, is walking towards the heavens. All his brothers, his wife, everybody joins him. They all fall by the wayside. He alone, he reaches there. That is the spiritual path. And so, this whole burden, notice, Sri Aurobindo was constantly thinking of humanity, its problems, how to bring help to the whole of humanity. And his spiritual life, therefore, is not by any means, you can't call it a kind of indulgence, any kind of selfishness. A scientist who spends his days and nights in the laboratory finding a cure for cancer, you can see what he does. And here is Sri Aurobindo, spending 40 years of precious yogic life trying to find the ultimate cure for this human malady. There are medicines, there are treatments available, but the treatments that are available to us are of the kind which say, let your son join IIT. This is a counsel of despair. But here, the Supreme Mother says to Ashwapati, do not get lost in any kind of spiritual ecstasy. Go among human beings, live there. Let your life be an example to other people. Thy soul was born to share the laden force. Obey thy nature and fulfill thy fate. Accept the difficulty and the godlike toil. For the slow-paced, omniscient purpose live. The omniscient's purpose seems to be slow-paced. We all want to drive very fast. God doesn't seem to be in a particular hurry. Over this earth, he has already spent 15 billion years. If the scientists were to be believed, 15 billion years the world is going on. And we haven't yet reached even the midway point. We are close to the midway point. Another 10-12 billion years. This is what the Divine Mother is saying. This is a slow-paced world. You have seen the end. That everybody will participate in, but not now at the end of this journey. The enigma's knot is tied in humankind. A lightning from the heights that think and plan, plowing the air of life with vanishing trails. Man, soul awake in an unconscious world, aspires in vain to change the cosmic dream. Man's, he says, in enigma's knot. Man's life is an enigma. He is all made of matter. But he is the only product of matter who constantly thinks and dreams of spirit. And he is the one, a lightning from the heights that think and plan. We are the only species which can think, plowing the air of life with vanishing trails. Man, soul awake in an unconscious world. For the first time in nature, we have a species which is self-aware. Man is the only species which is self-aware. Not only conscious, there are other conscious beings on earth, but we are self-conscious. We know that we live here self-conscious. Arrived from some half-luminous beyond, he is a stranger in the mindless vasts, a traveler in his off-shifting home. Amid the tread of many infinities, he has pitched a tent of life in desert space. Heaven's fixed regard beholds him from above, in the house of nature a perturbing guest. Man has become a perturbing guest. All the other species came. They survived for some time. Some big species even disappeared from the face of the earth. But man is a perturbing guest. In one sense, man is the apex of creation. Man is to this earth what the brain is to man. An organism which reached its present form very late in the evolutionary journey. But because of brain, man is distinct. All his civilization, science, technology, everything is because of the brain. But scientists are wondering whether man is to this earth what a brain is to the human being, or is man a cancerous growth on the body of this earth. Just as a cancer begins to eat you up, similarly man has started eating up forests, he is eating up ecology, he is eating up birds, animals. Many species are being killed, and for his comfort, the ozone zone and all the problems that ecologists are talking about, all this is happening. So man is a perturbing guest. On the one hand, man is a tremendous potential. Man is the only species who can become God. Or man is the only species who can destroy this earth. So he says man is a perturbing guest. In the house of nature, a perturbing guest, a voyager twixt thoughts' inconstant shores, a hunter of unknown and beautiful powers, a nomad of the far mysterious light, in the wide ways, a little spark of God. You can't deny, there is a little spark of God in man. Against his spirit, all is in dire league. A Titan influence stops his Godward gaze. Leave a few lines because there's so much. Last two lines on that page gives a beautiful picture of the human problem. What is the man's problem on earth? Assailed on earth, last two lines. Assailed on earth, page 336. And unassured of heaven. We are constantly being attacked on earth. We constantly keep dreaming of heaven. We don't even know heaven exists. So he says, assailed on earth and unassured of heaven, descended here, unhappy and sublime. Man is the most unhappy creature. Man is the most discontented creature. Give a dog an elephant, food when it is hungry, time to rest when it is tired. That's all it needs. Man, give him anything he wants when he sleeps. All his desires, his aims, his ambitions keep coming on. And do not let him sleep, do not let him even digest what he has eaten. No animal ever had the indigestion problem as you and I have. Caused by stress, caused by worries, caused by things. So he says, he is unhappy, all right, but he is also sublime. The most sublime creature on earth is man. The most discontented creature on earth also is man. And man is sublime because man always remains discontented. Why does man remain discontented? I told you the other day. As long as we look for fulfillment in finite things, the verdict is you will remain unsatisfied. Even if you own all the motels, man doesn't realize that what he is really seeking is the infinite. Nothing finite can ever substitute the infinite. Since we don't know we are looking for the infinite, we always keep looking for the finite. And ultimately, when all the finite comes into our arms, we still find happiness slipping through our fingers. There is no fulfillment, no happiness. And that is why man never rests. Sri Aurobindo calls in the Life Divine, divine discontent. Man is always prompted by divine discontent. Prods him on. No matter how wrong you are, there is something within you which will never let you rest in anything short of the infinite. God has taken care of that. If you want to rest in the finite, it is just temporary. Either the finite in which you have taken fulfillment will be taken away from you, or the finite remains with you and you don't find happiness in it. Then you ask, what is it I have done wrong? Now where do I have to go? This is the search of man. So descended here, unhappy and sublime, a link between the demigod and the beast. Man is a link on the one hand between the beast and on the other hand between God and the beast. A long time ago, a Greek philosopher said, man is poised between the beasts and the gods. He doesn't have the innocence of beasts. He doesn't have the perfection of gods. And so man is the most tragic creature. Anything you give man, he can write big Shakespearean tragedies out of that. Animals have no tragedy. Gods have no tragedy. Because animals live in innocence. That is the Garden of Eden, where we are not haunted by a sense of sin, separation. That is the innocence. A tiger doesn't worry the whole night, oh, I committed violence and ate up a lamb. Human beings, even when they act in a way which is directed by their own conscience as not right, they spend whole night, so I shouldn't have done it. Next time again when you get an opportunity you may do it, but there is something all the time biting. All this is the tragic life of man. And therefore the Divine Mother says, a link between the demigod and the beast. He knows not his own greatness nor his aim. Man doesn't realize his greatness. Man doesn't realize he is a candidate for divinity. He is God in the making. He doesn't realize it. He knows not his own greatness nor his aim. He has forgotten why he has come and whence. From where has he come? Why has he come? We have forgotten all these things. He has forgotten why he has come and whence. His spirit and his members are at war. His mind pulls him in one direction. His body pulls him in another direction. His vital energies pull him in another direction. But something within him which is noble remembers God, remembers goodness, and all his parts, they are always a tug-of-war in a man's life. His spirits and his members are at war. His heights break off too low to reach the skies. His mass is buried in the animal mind. A large part of human beings is buried in animal consciousness. And unless this animal consciousness is cleansed, humanity has no future. I have done everything possible in all my waking moments. I have tried to lead the good life, the moral life. How did I slip? How did I make this mistake? Well, as psychology tells you, you drive undesirable things from the conscious mind. Where do they go? They go and seek shelter in what is called the subconscient. There they wait, waiting for a good opportunity when you are little less vigilant. And the minute you are less vigilant, you find they pull you down, and before you know, your head is already on the ground, you are fallen, you are again to rise. So our mass is buried in animal maya. We all talk about goodness, kindness, this, that, and the other. I was telling my friend today, I said, somebody goes to Gujarat, some rabble-rouser, and says the government of India has been so unfair to Gujaratis. Gujaratis have contributed so much for the richness of this country. What have you received? If a dozen people trained like this can be let loose on Gujarat, Gujaratis will be ready to do what the Akalis have started doing some time ago. Oh, we are the most. We have suffered the greatest injustice in the hands of the government. It is very easy. It is very easy to infuriate the animal in man. You have cultivated with great discipline. You have done satsang, you have done bhajans, you have done puja. We are all brethren, we are all friends. And we have done it for years. People have lived like brethren for years. The eldest member of the family used to be a Sikh. That was the Indian tradition. In many Punjabi families, the eldest son became a Sardar. Lo and behold, the twist in politics. They became rank enemies for some time. Finally, good sense prevailed, and we are all together today. The point is, we had almost reached that breaking point. This is man's tragedy. A major part of him is still buried in the animal mire. And people like Mahatma Gandhi had absolutely no idea the odds against which man is fighting. It's for nothing that Sri Aurobindo is saying, mind can never release you from the hold of all these animal propensities. You need a greater power, something greater than mind. Supermind for him was not just an obsession, it was not a... He realized anything short of that will not help man to rise from all this pull of the animal world. And so, the Divine Mother says, his mass is buried in the animal mire. A strange antinomy is his nature's rule. A riddle of opposites is his nature's rule. Freedom, he asks, but needs to live in bonds. We all want freedom, but lo and behold, what is the freedom we want? We want the freedom to be bound. And we can be bound by so many things. If the early morning cup of tea doesn't come, you don't see the sun rising, glorious morning, the sun is rising, but you're all the time bound to this little hot water. It has not come, the whole world looks gloomy to you. We bind ourselves so many ways. Freedom, he asks, but needs to live in bonds. He has need of darkness to perceive some light. We have to surround ourselves with darkness so that we can see a little light. And need of grief to feel a little bliss. If there is no grief, we don't even feel bliss. I don't know how many of you have ever been to a really spiritual place where there is spiritual atmosphere. If you go to Pondicherry, not all people feel the atmosphere bad, but most people do. The first day everything is new, you go to Samadhi and you see these venerable people of whom you have heard, so there is some excitement. Then if you have no contacts there, no friends and so on, then what do? You go in the morning, go to the Samadhi, meal time you go to the dining hall. Rest of the time what do? You sleep. Pondicherry is a place where you get very good sleep. There is so much peace in the environment, very sound sleep. Then after 6-7 days you feel bored. Because in the world outside, we are always used to getting vital kicks. Gossip, friendship, this, that, the other, all this, we are living in this. There are none of these things. There is nothing but quiet. Nobody is interested in you in the sense you may be a great officer in your company or in your community. People respect you a great deal. There everybody is the same. Whether you are somebody working in the dining room or you are teaching philosophy in the university, everybody is the same. Everybody goes to the same dining room. Everybody stands the same place, eats the same thing, lives the same way. There are no scope for vital kicks. So after a while you think Pondicherry is a dull place. So you first sleep and then suddenly you find it's a dull place. Let me at least go up to Madras so that, I will be once again in the midst of all this vital agitation to which we are used. So human beings can't even take peace and happiness for very long. They want the opposites, what is called the dvandva, happiness and sorrow. Because there is sorrow, there is happiness. Otherwise we won't even notice happiness. That's what we are. He has need of death to find a greater life. I don't want to comment on this because that will take quite a while. All sides he sees and turns to every call. He has no certain light by which to walk. His life is a blind man's buff, a hide and seek. He seeks himself, and from himself he runs. He seeks himself he runs. Meeting himself, he thinks it other than he. If you yourself were to confront yourself, you won't even recognize yourself. Meeting himself, he thinks it other than he. Always he builds, but finds no constant ground. Always he journeys, but nowhere arrives. Always he journeys, nowhere he arrives. He would guide the world. Himself he cannot guide. When others are in difficulty, advice very free flows from us. But if we ourselves are in problem, all this wisdom becomes useless. So he says, always he journeys but nowhere arrives. He would guide the world. Himself he cannot guide. He would save his soul, but his life he cannot save. He would save his soul. We all want to try and liberate our soul, freedom of the soul, mukti for the soul. But what about the body? What about the life energies? What about the mind? Raman Maharshi had the highest realization, but in his body, it was the same body of ignorance as you and I had. He had some kind of cancer. He had to be operated on. He had such control over the body that without taking any anesthetic, the doctor would perform an operation on him. All this is, highest siddhi. But the fact remains, his body did not benefit from his soul's great achievement. And Sri Aurobindo thinks this is not possessing God integrally. If you possess God integrally, then every part of your being must manifest God's perfection. And so, this is what it is. We would all like to save our soul, but our life we cannot seem to be, we are not seem to be interested in saving. The light his soul had brought, his mind has lost. All he has learned is soon again in doubt. A sun to him seems the shadow of his thoughts. Then all is shadow again and nothing true. Unknowing what he does or whither he tends, he fabricates signs of the real in ignorance. I will just leave this and go on on the next page, a little bit there. Page 339. Yet, having said all these things, these are all the reasons to convince Ashwapati that man has not yet reached a stage where he can benefit from the descent of the higher power. Man is still seemed to be too lost. And yet he says, because the human instrument has failed, about 7 lines from the top of page 339, because the human instrument has failed, the Godhead frustrate sleeps within his seed, a spirit entangled in the forms it made. But then he assures him, his failure is not failure whom God leads. Therefore, never give up on the human enterprise. Ultimately, God is the leader. His failure is not failure whom God leads. Through all the slow, mysterious march goes on. An immutable power has made this mutable world. A self-fulfilling transcendence treads man's road, the driver of the soul upon its path. It knows its steps, its way is inevitable, and how shall the end be vain when God is guide? Don't be disheartened by what you see. Don't be disheartened by the very slow-paced progress of man. This enterprise will never fail, because man ultimately is under the supervision and guidance of God. And how can God's enterprise fail? However man's mind may tire or fail his flesh, a will prevails, cancelling his conscious choice. God gives man all the freedom that he wants. And very often man is bent on misusing the freedom. But when it comes to the crunch, God overrules man's will and imposes his will on man. God has always done it, and therefore don't despair. However man's mind may tire or fail his flesh, a will prevails, cancelling his conscious choice. The goal recedes, a boundless vastness calls, retreating into an immense unknown. There is no end to the world's stupendous march. There is no rest for the embodied soul. It must live on, describe all time's huge curve. Finally, this is what the Divine Mother tells Ashwapati says to Ashwapati on page 341, what? 840 is it? Or is it my watch? Okay. My light shall be in thee, my strength thy force. Let not the impatient Titan drive thy heart. Ask not the imperfect fruit, the partial prize. Don't ask for anything less than the perfect. Only one boon to greaten thy spirit. Demand only one joy to raise thy kind desire. Above blind faith and the antagonist powers, moveless there stands a high unchanging will. To its omnipotence leave thy works result. All things shall change in God's transfiguring art. Things will change when the time comes. Man will reach his destination, but it is going to take time. Man right now is nowhere near ready to receive what you have seen, what you have received. So don't be in a hurry. What does Ashwapati say? Ashwapati says, we won't be able to read this part in any detail, but I'll just read some important lines. How shall I rest content with mortal days and the dull measure of terrestrial things? I who have seen behind the cosmic mask the glory and the beauty of thy face. O Divine Mother, I have seen such splendor, such fulfillment for human life. How can I go back empty-handed and be capable of giving nothing to my brethren, fellow men? How can I go back with empty hands? Hard is the doom to which thou bindest thy sons. How long shall our spirits battle with the night and bear defeat and the brute yoke of death? We who are vessels of a deathless force and builders of the Godhead of the race. How long? How long shall we wait? We have been waiting for millennia, hoping things will change. Revolutions come. People promise great things. All revolutions ultimately end like all the previous revolutions. We wait. An avatar comes. We hope with his advent human life will change. Nothing changes. A few people probably take benefit of his coming. The burden of suffering on man's back continues exactly the same. Probably it gets heavier, not lighter. We who are vessels of a deathless force and builders of the Godhead of the race, or if it is thy work I do below, amid the error and waste of human life, in the vague light of man's half-conscious mind, why breaks not in some distant gleam of thee? And then you can see his voice is tired. He says, ever the centuries and millenniums pass. Where in the greyness is thy coming's ray? Where is the thunder of thy victory's wings? Only we hear the feet of passing gods. Oh, God is coming, open the door, God is coming, we are all waiting. And then what we are told, oh, he is passed by, gone by. How long? How many centuries, how many millenniums shall man wait? This is what Ashwapati is asking. Next page, a few lines. All we have done is ever still to do. All breaks and all renews and is the same. Revolutions come, new social legislation, new economic structure, new this, new that. Then we find it is the same man, exploiting everything he can exploit. The powerful exploit the weak. This has been going on and on and on. Huge revolutions of life's fruitless gyre. The newborn ages perish like the old. All hopeful. What is it? The paradise for the proletariat. That's what they promised. The workers have nothing to look forward to but heaven on earth. That's what Marx and his companions proclaimed. But they were only able to create the nightmare of Siberia. The heavens of the proletariat never materialized. This has been going on and on and on. So he says, huge revolutions of life's fruitless gyre, the newborn ages perish like the old, as if the sad enigma kept its right, till all is done for which this scene was made. Too little the strength that now with us is born, too faint the light that steals through nature's lids, too scant the joy with which she buys our pain. A few lines later, almost towards the end of that page, all life is fixed in an ascending scale, and adamantine is the evolving law. In the beginning is prepared the close. This strange, irrational product of the mire, this compromise between the beast and God, is not the crown of this miraculous world. Ashwapati says, "So mother, I am convinced that if that is the glory for which man has to prepare himself, man as he is now can never reach that glory." He says, this strange, irrational product of the mire, we're all products of this mud. Irrational product. We are all take great pride in being mental beings. Our mental beings only, the mental stature, as I told you the other day, only used in laboratories, in computers and so on. But in our own, guiding our own personal lives, this is completely shut off. The crocodile and the horse, that brain in us takes the lead. This is, and since man is this irrational product of the mire, he says, I am convinced he is not the crown of thy miraculous world. A new being has to come. Why don't you expedite the advent of this new being who is going to be born out of man? Man can never reach that because man is this irrational product of the mire. And then comes a beautiful passage. I just want to read it. He says, I have already seen, Ashwapati says, a new race which is already ready, waiting to come down on earth. In the subtle physical world, this new race of beings is ready. These are the pioneers of the new age. And he describes this new age in such ecstatic terms. It begins like this, same page, 343, about 9-10 lines from the bottom. I saw the omnipotent's flaming pioneers over the heavenly verge which turns towards life, come crowding down the amber stairs of birth, forerunners of a divine multitude. Out of the paths of the morning star they came into the little room of mortal life. A new race is already ready in this subtle occult world, and they are all waiting to come down the amber stairs of birth and occupy this world. The sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn, he describes them, the sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn, the great creators with wide brows of calm, the massive barrier breakers of the world, and wrestlers with destiny in her lists of will, and laborers in the quarries of the gods, the messengers of the incommunicable, the architects of immortality. Into the fallen human sphere they came, faces that wore the immortal's glory still, voices that communed still with the thoughts of God, bodies made beautiful by the Spirit's light, carrying the magic word, the mystic fire, carrying the Dionysian cup of joy, approaching eyes of a diviner man, lips chanting an unknown anthem of the soul, feet echoing in the corridors of time. This is this ecstatic poetry in which he describes them. High priests of wisdom, sweetness, might and bliss, discoverers of beauty's sunlit ways, and swimmers of love's laughing fiery floods, and dancers within rapture's golden doors, their tread one day shall change the suffering earth and justify the light on nature's face. This race which will come will change the entire face of this earth. All shall be done for which our pain was born. And then he says, even as of old, man came behind the beast, just as man appeared on the earth after the animal creation had come before him. This high divine successor surely shall come. Just as man has come after the beasts, this divine successor is described here, shall come after man. Behind man's inefficient mortal pace, behind his vain labor, sweat and blood and tears, he shall know what mortal mind barely does think. He shall do what the heart of the mortal could not dare, inheritor of the toil of human time. He shall take on him the burden of the gods. All heavenly light shall visit the earth's thoughts. The might of heaven shall fortify earthly hearts. Earth's deeds shall touch the superhuman sight. Earth's seeing widen into the infinite. Finally, Ashwapati says to the mother, Mother, I know all this is ready. Please expedite this process. We just can't afford to wait very long. Man has been characterized as a paranoid creature. And many thinkers have worried. Now that he has the means, man will not hesitate to destroy himself on earth. How he will destroy, what weapon he will use, is still in the womb of future. But as I said the other day, thinkers like Arthur Kessler and others have said, at the most man has about 150 years on this earth. Within this time he will destroy himself. There is no doubt about it. And many thinkers, sensitive thinkers, have committed suicide, despairing that man has no future on this earth. So here, oh Mother, you are asking us to wait. How long do we wait? What great tragedies do you expect man to go through before naturally man will advance and develop and grow? And therefore he says, I have this prayer. What is the prayer? Send to earth one representative of your grace and glory, and let this representative expedite the coming of the new man. Let this representative make the descent of the new consciousness possible. This is what he says. O radiant, page 345, middle of that page. O radiant fountain of the world's delight, world free and unattainable above, O bliss whoever dwells deep hid within, while men seek the outside and never find. I'll leave out a few lines and then say, mission to earth some living form of thee. Send down to earth some living form of thee. One moment fill with thy eternity. Let thy infinity in one body live. All knowledge wrap one mind in seas of light. All love throb single in one human heart. Immortal, treading the earth with mortal feet. All heaven's beauty crowd in earthly limbs. Omnipotence girdled with the power of God. Movements and moments of a mortal will. Packed with the eternal might, one human hour, and with one gesture change all future time. Let a great word be spoken from the heights, and one great act unlock the doors of fate. Basically, he's asking, let an emanation from you, a representative of the Divine Mother, come down to earth. He's praying for an avatar, the Supreme Mother, to come down to earth. And this is what finally the Divine Mother says. And after reading this, we will conclude on page 346. O strong forerunner, I have heard thy cry. Your prayer, its sincerity, have touched me, Divine Mother says. One shall descend and break the iron law. One shall descend and break the iron law of death. Change nature's doom by the lone spirit's power. A limitless mind that can contain the world. A sweet and violent heart of ardent calms, moved by the passions of the gods shall come. All mights and greatnesses shall join in her. Beauty shall walk celestial on the earth. Delight shall sleep in the cloudnet of her hair. And in her body, as on his homing tree, immortal love shall beat his glorious wings. A music of griefless strings shall weave her charm. The harps of the perfect shall attune her voice. The streams of heaven shall murmur in her laugh. Her lips shall be the honeycombs of God. Her limbs his golden jars of ecstasy. Her breasts the rapture flowers of paradise. She shall bear wisdom in her voiceless bosom. Strength shall be with her like a conqueror's sword, and from her eyes the eternal's bliss shall gaze. A seed shall be sown in death's tremendous hour, a branch of heaven transplant to human soil. Nature shall overleap her mortal step. Fate shall be changed by an unchanging will. This is her promise, and as promised, Savitri is born to Ashwapati. Notice, this exactly is the story in Mahabharata, but now we have spent about 6 days looking at small little parts of Ashwapati's yoga. Compare this Ashwapati's yoga with Vyasa's description in 10 lines of Ashwapati's yajna. You will see therefore that this is a totally different kind of a work. As he said, it's a legend and a symbol of our highest aspiration and its fulfillment. I think I have always made it in 2 hours, 1.5 hours. We'll stop here. We have now concluded part 1 of Savitri. Part 1 consists of 3 books, but as you could see, I have been able to read only maybe 3-4 pages in all out of these 348 pages. And I didn't even stop to comment on the poetry of it. The poetry is so powerful, so luminous, that even if you merely read it, you feel so full that sometimes I have to ask myself, tell myself, let me stop here because it is so full. But the requirement of a program like this requires that you just go on and reach a certain point. So I have done that. Thank you.